Good morning. Let's try again. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Monday, and we are so glad that you are here with us. It is a little bit of a different Monday, as you can see, a different setup, and we're excited about it. As we get started, Mackenzie's going to come and share the wagon. We've got some birthdays, and then we will get started with all of this very quickly. So, Mackenzie, will you come?
Okay, so this week, don't forget that the WAG is always on the website if you need to go reference it. And we have 3 meetings this week. There's a Leo Club meeting on Wednesday during their time, a student council meeting Thursday, and an SCA meeting Friday. Volleyball this week, JV and varsity has a game today. And on Thursday, middle school and JV and varsity have a game, and it's senior night if y'all want to come to that. Football, middle school has a football on Thursday, and so does JV. And varsity has a home game on Friday, so come out and support our Bears. Purchasing athletic tickets. Beginning this week, students who want to attend a home middle school, JV, or varsity volleyball game or varsity football game must reserve a ticket that can be scanned for entry. Estimate students do not have to pay for tickets, but must have one in order to attend. Tickets can be reserved on our website at this link. It's up there. And football tickets are on sale now, and volleyball tickets will go on sale a week before each game. Students should select the home student general admission option for a specific game. To check out, enter your ID number as the promotion code, and the fee will be removed. You will receive an email with your mobile ticket. And if you need that link, it's always on the website. You can go under athletics and find the link there. The Leo Club art contest is still going on, so if you want to enter that, make sure you're working on that. And Friday is National Custodian Worker Day, so picture up there 4 of our workers, one of them's not up there, so if you see them today, please just say thank you for everything that they do. I know they really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mackenzie. We do have a few birthdays this week, and so yesterday was Delani Ocean Sato. Today is Haley Whitaker. Thursday is Xavier Viescas. And Friday is Emma Sanchez.
You missed one. Monday. Today, Miss Henry.
Oh, it didn't.
Okay, today is Miss Shelley Henry's birthday as well. So we have been working on this for a couple weeks now, and we are very excited. All of you already know the man sitting on the right as Mr. Bob Wiegand, who has been here for how many years now? 3? Third year. And then over to his left is Constable David Peterson. And they are going to share with you their life, a little bit of their life story, and we're going to have a conversation about race today. So as they talk, I want you to be thinking about questions you might have. We're not going to ask questions today, but there will be a Google form emailed to you, totally anonymous questions. If you have any questions for them about their story or about race in our world today, please check that link and send us those questions. And on Wednesday, they're both going to come back and they're going to answer those questions right here in chapel. So I'm turning it over to you guys. I'm going to set some timers and we're going to try to stay on top of this. So here we go.
Thanks, Clint. The Lord put racism on my heart. It's been there for a long time. And I would tell you that, now we're going through not only a time of COVID, but a time of unrest. I think it's time we have a conversation here. I want to talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to introduce a little more my friend, David Peterson. I first met David when we were in 2nd grade. I'm not going to tell you what year that was. Let's just say it's been a long time that I've known David, and it felt right to have him here. I want you to look at the scripture real quick and ponder on it. There were 12 disciples. They weren't all from the same side of the lake. And Jesus assembled them, and he gave them a command: love one another. And it's the same command that we have. Now, I want to show you some definitions real quick, just to give you some background on this. Segregation. Back in the 1890s, the Supreme Court made a decision Plessy versus, I can't remember exactly, but you'll look it up. It pertained to the 14th Amendment and states' rights. They established the principle of separate but equal. It was a way for them to keep populations segregated and say, well, we've got a school for the white kids over here, and we've got a school for the black kids over here, and as long as we try to do a decent job at each of them, it's okay. But it wasn't. The Constitution guaranteed equal protection under the law to all people, and the education was not necessarily equal. The facilities were not, the money spent was not, and so in 1954, next word, in a case called Brown versus Board of Education, a law was passed to desegregate the schools, but no plan was set out by this, well, it wasn't passing the law, it was decision, it was court decision, became the law. Brown versus Board of Education was a landmark decision, but there was no plan, no timeline laid out, and so, some states resisted, drug their feet. Finally, there was Brown 2, then there came a plan, and gradually schools began to integrate or desegregate. And that occurred in San Marcos, Texas in the early 60s. And in second grade, my friend came to Mrs. Geeson's room next door to my teacher, Mrs. Wilkes' room, and we became friends. Now, when you meet him and get to know him, you'll see his smile and his sense of humor, and you'll know he's a whole lot more outgoing than I am. And he was a popular guy. Everybody liked David. There was, in San Marcos, it was a good thing. It was a good time. We grew up together, and there were no hard feelings. I could tell you many things, but I wasn't a country club sports guy. I didn't play golf or tennis. My hand-eye coordination was not great with the bat, so I gravitated toward track. All you had to be able to do was run fast and turn left. So, needless to say, I was kind of a minority in that sport, and I got to be great friends with a lot of Hispanic and black students at San Marcos High School. In fact, I was the token white boy on the relay team for a while. They let me tag along. I was the slowest of the four for sure. But names like Nathan Harris, Paul Guerrero, guys that could really fly, could make up for me on one leg. We traveled all over South Texas in the summer running AAU track, and then competed for the Rattlers at San Marcos High School. So I didn't know about racism. I had no real sense of it because I grew up in a very diverse school. And I had a good time with all my friends. And I'm going to turn it over to David here.
Thank you, Bobby. I can tell you this guy here, I don't think he actually mentioned to you that, segregation that's not even in our vocabulary. Y'all are young right now, and you can see the things that are going on. Bobby and I go way, way, way back with a lot of schoolmates. I came from a family of 12 with 5 sisters and 4 brothers, and had to walk to school. And that was totally different for me, but I never saw anything in a different color. When we were in class together, we were just playing with each other, I color something, he colors something. We go to the lunchroom. There was no color in our vocabulary. We ran track together. We got on the bus together. We got off the bus together. And today, as we see each other, and our children are growing up with each other, it's like us growing up with each other. When I knew Bobby was over here, that was one of the greatest things to me, is to come see him and share stories about how how we grew up. There was no colors. The things that you see on television today, don't let that get to you. Be nice. Be a Christian. It's always a good day to wake up and say something nice or say something to your neighbor or your friend or your sister or your brother. I, in school, never saw a color. When I got to school, I might have had a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and then my schoolmate that's sitting behind me would have a bologna sandwich. We'd swap. Because I would want to go to school and sit with my friend. I wasn't looking at a color. I was looking at him and I sitting together, and we were talking about the different crayons that we were coloring books with, or we were thinking about lunch or PE. And that's what Bobby and I did. And we still do those things. When we have our class reunions, it's a fun day. It's a really fun day. There's no segregation. I saw it in my times when we did get into another school, and when we did, it was the best thing that ever happened. It was excellent. And I see my friends today. I see Bobby, and I was so glad when he said, hey David, can you come over to the school and let him know what we did in school, how we grew up together, rode on the bus, and we ran track together, and we had some of the same teachers, and I miss those days. I'm always glad to see Bobby and share some stories with him and ask him about his grandkids, his son, my son teaches school, and he says, you know what? I'm so glad because I've got friends that teach school also, and it's so good. It feels so good to look back in those good days and see the advance that it is now. Y'all have an advance. Keep that advance up. Keep your heads up. Be a Christian. It's nice to come here and just be free and see Bobby. I told him when I walked in here, I've been up here several times, and he asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee, and I said, well, I really don't drink coffee, but I'll drink a little this morning. And you know what? He gives me a coffee cup, and it says San Marcos Baptist Academy. That goes on my mantle. And I thank him for that. That's a friend. That's just like me going to school and I'm sharing my dessert or my sandwich, trading it out with someone else. So he's still my friend. And he'll always be my friend. And his children will be my friends. And they will be my kids. Just like all of you. If you see me anywhere, you're my children. You all are my children. And you're all children of God.
Didn't stay in San Marcos. And graduated from Texas State with a Zoom called Southwest Texas, and I couldn't get out of town fast enough. But when you look back on things, they appear much differently. But I began to discover some things. The first year I was out, I was in New Braunfels, Texas. Not much different, right down the road. Probably less diversity in my first teaching job. But right after that, I went down to East Bernard, Texas. In Southeast Texas, little rice farming community areas. The school was a class 2A school, if that means anything to you. There's about 230-something students in the school. A little less than with the total enrollment we have here, K-12. While in East Bernard, I found out that our black athletes could only participate if we drove the activity bus back out to the rice farms after school. So my rotation wasn't until the 6th week of school. When I drove the route, the kids told me where to drop them off. We went through some little places called Elm Grove, Nada, Egypt. They weren't really incorporated towns. They were little communities with mobile homes, boxcars, and shanties for houses. Shanty is a pretty ramshackle construction, for those of you who don't understand. These mobile homes were not real nice, and in the winter, in the boxcars, they heated with 55-gallon drums and open flames in their boxcar. So I began to see that things weren't necessarily equal in every way. And these families were tenant farmers on these rice farms. And the conditions weren't a whole lot better, and maybe not as good in some cases, as the slavery and the pre-Civil War period. I moved on from there and wound up the coaching stop in a place called Channelview in East Houston. And I want to show you a couple of athletes I had there I'm very proud of. This gentleman's name right here is Averon Hurts. Averon is the head coach at Channelview High School. He was my defensive tackle when I coached there in Channelview. He had a son. Some of y'all might recognize him. He was the 53rd draft pick in the last NFL draft of the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's a class act young man. For those of you who don't know anything about him, I can tell that story later. I just threw that in there. I don't really know Jalen, but I admire him from afar. And I know that his dad's a good man. Here's another guy real quick on the left here that I'm real proud of. Henry Coleman teaches special education and coaches football and track at Pasadena Memorial. Love Henry like a son. Great young man. He's involved in a coach's Bible study at his school. He calls me on the phone when they have their class reunions, sometimes around midnight, and we talk, he and other of his teammates. And so I became very close to kids. Then I began to notice some things. Was losing athletes. One night I was watching a show on Fox. Back then it was just a UHF station. It was called Cops. I think it's a long-running show. And I'm watching, and all of a sudden, I see my starting outside linebacker being body slammed by a cop on the banks of the Greens Bayou. I got to see him for just a little bit before he went to prison. And I said, "Daryl, why?" He said, "Well, you know, I got involved in gangs, and I had to sell drugs." I said, "But, you know, you're bright, and you're playing ball, and you got a way out, and now you don't." And that hurt me a great deal. Later, I had a young man at another school right there in the same area who was my special teams captain. He wasn't necessarily big enough to play running back, but he was pretty fast. He wasn't necessarily, had a little bit of a learning difficulty and had a hard time learning some of the coverages in the secondary. But put him on the kickoff or punt coverage, and he was down the field making plays all the time. He won the red helmet that we gave away for the Special Teams Player of the Year week after week. Loved Cedric. He was infectious smile. He came from a family that were God-fearing. He attended church every Sunday. There was everything in the world to like about Cedric. One Saturday morning, I arrived for film study, and the head coach met me at the door. He said, "I got some bad news. Cedric's gone." That still hurts me now. Cedric was shot to death by a gang member on a Friday evening, defending the honor of a young lady, doing the right thing, just like Cedric always did. I developed a real hatred for gangs. And I coached a little while longer, had a young man named Detroit. He was arrested. He was holding a shotgun on a drug deal. Detroit had played 1 year of junior college ball before he came back for the summer. While holding that shotgun, he fired on an undercover policeman, wounding him pretty badly. He wound up in Huntsville. I don't know where he's at now. But there were stories like Kenneth. Kenneth was a defensive end. Kenneth was big, he was strong, he was fast. He was going to get into North Texas State on a scholarship. And Kenneth's a success story. Averon's a success story. Henry's a success story. And it dawned on me that the best chance that some of these kids had was us, the coaches, in the locker rooms. But the loss of kids affected me a great deal, and I made a change in my career pathway, and I went into school administration. I became a member of the East Harris County Gang Task Force. I busted gang roll-ins in restrooms in our school. They sent me to a low-performing middle school that needed a lot of help. And just real quickly, I developed some informants, and I hid in the pipe chases outside bathrooms. And as soon as the roll-in started, we busted them. And we got a lot of kids out of gangs. We got them on the right track, and we turned a low-performing middle school into an acceptable middle school.
Bobby's talking about law enforcement. He's talking about his career. I've got 33 years of law enforcement. 33 years. And that 33 years is because of good choices. Good choices, good decisions. And each and every one of you make good choices and decisions every day. Think about that. Every day you made a choice to get up this morning. And the first thing you said to yourself is you probably, some of you or all of you, did a prayer. And that's so important. I make a decision every morning to get up and say a prayer. 33 years I have dealt with a lot of different type of law enforcement issues, whether it's civil or whether it's criminal. And I'm so glad that Bobby asked me to come, because that's something that I want to share with you. An open door, open book, anytime. I've seen so many different things happen. You know, Bobby shared some stories with you. I can share a lot of true stories with you also. But making choice decisions is so important in your life. Whether you're going to brush your teeth that morning and forget it and say your prayer first, you know, or you're in a rush, you forget a book that is going to delay you in school, or whether you forgot your lunch. Think about it. Think about who you are and what you want to do for yourself in the future. In my career, I never knew I was going to be in law enforcement, but I'm glad that that's something that I made a decision and a choice. Starting out, I mowed grass. I even cut Bobby's yard at a time or two. And why? But his dad was really good to me. That was extra money, $1.25 an hour, 75 cents an hour, trimming trees, a dishwasher. I waited tables. I put furniture together. I did pest control. Look at me now. With 12 brothers and sisters, and I said earlier, you know, only 5 sisters right now and 4 brothers. I have made my career from here all the way up, and that's with right decisions. The right decisions. And hanging around with the right people. I never knew where Bobby was going to be in 10 or 15 years, but sharing his history with me is very important. I'm so glad. Right decisions, right choices. All those things that I did in life and what Bobby did, you know, of me saving people, you know, you hear about, you know, the police officer, you know, getting the cat out of the tree. You know, you hear about bad officers. You hear about good officers. You make that decision when you look at something or you're going to analyze something. You look at that situation. I looked at myself and I looked at my brothers and sisters, you know, of their education and my education and where I am now and what I do, sharing my experience, my history to others. It's important. I look back on the things that I've done in law enforcement and the things I've done as I was growing up. And I like it because I can come out and I hopefully that I can give something back to the community that they're going to take and do something with it. And I love working with the community. I love doing what I'm doing. And I know that I make the right choices. And I know I make those choices because of the surrounding of people. The surrounding of people that I surrounded myself with 9 children. When I was 7 years old, I used to walk from Dunbar School, which was a school, it was segregated. From there, probably a mile. And there was this store, it was Concord store. And when I got out of school, I would walk and I would look for soda water bottles. I could sell those big soda water bottles, 16 ounces, for 15 cents. And I decided to go into this store, and I decided to take 6 pieces of bubble gum. 6 pieces of bubble gum. 4 of them I had in my hand, 2 of them I had in my pocket. And I've been going to that store for years and years and years. And the 2 that I had, the 4 that I had in my hand I was going to pay for, the other 2, when I was about to walk out of that store, and I knew the store owner, he said, stop. He said, you paid for the 4, what about the 2 in your hand? He says, I'm going to let you go this time. In that moment, I thought to myself, was that a good choice or decision? So think about it. And I never did it again. But I kept going to that store. And that store owner was always good to me. Always good to me. So good decisions, good choices.
So where do we go from here? I'm going to paraphrase a little bit from an article, Why Diversity Matters to a White Person. A guy named Dan Panetti wrote it. I'm a white guy. My great-grandfather came over on a boat in the 1870s. He was a peasant shepherd in Germany. But as a tenant farmer, he earned land. He had an opportunity advantage. 4 generations later, I stand here. We have opportunity in the United States of America. Now, I checked white on the census, so why is diversity important to me? I could ignore tough conversations about it. Don't have to talk to y'all about it today. But I have friends, I have former students of other ethnicities. We must all get involved in the dialogue about diversity. Are things better than when I was growing up or when I was working in Southeast Texas? Most definitely, they are better. But we're not where God would have us be yet. These dialogues can portray the perspective of a white person, especially an old white man like me, as irrelevant at best or outright racist. Entering the dialogue to even listen and learn is sometimes met with ridicule or insult. Sometimes the criticism comes from other white Christians who don't understand that this is central to the gospel. Yes. Sometimes black people who do not know me stereotype me. When real work needs to be done and racial conciliation dialogue is real work that needs to be done, it isn't for the faint of heart. The work calls for people ready and willing to roll up their proverbial sleeves and get their hands dirty. Think of how the Old Testament prophets were treated by their own for speaking uncomfortable truths. Jesus said, if the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. John 15:18. Many men and women throughout history faced extreme criticism for doing what now appears to be the right thing. Winston Churchill was branded a warmonger and forced out of office after he helped save his country from the devastation of Hitler's Third Reich. The Third Reich not only segregated the Jewish people from their culture, they attempted genocide against the Jews. Those who did not go along with it met their end. Martin Luther King Jr. was viewed by some as an instigator of racial unrest and violence. Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on the bus. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. Let me encourage you to become engaged and lean into the learning. By showing up and showing interest, you demonstrate that the concerns of those who are marginalized are important and need to be understood. In Isaiah 59, 14 through 16, the prophet calls on God's people to intercede. Justice is turned back and righteousness stands far away. For truth has stumbled in the public squares, and uprightness cannot enter. Truth is lacking, and he who departs from evil makes himself a prey. The Lord saw it, and in it displeased him that there was no justice. He saw that there was no man, and wondered that there was no one to intercede. We know that Christ was and is our intercessory and substitution. He laid down his life for us, paying the price that we owed. Whatever you've been given in terms of your time, your treasures, your talents is given to you for his glory and to be a blessing to others. To whom much is given, much more is required. Don't hold back by looking at what you don't have or don't understand. Consider what you've been given and move forward to be more informed, more involved, and more influential in moving toward reconciliation. In Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, he wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." That concept reminds me of biblical obligation to fight against injustice, not because it affects me personally, but because it breaks the heart of my loving and just Father.
Amen.
As a Christian, I'm compelled by the gospel to be an ambassador of God's redemptive grace, his restorative justice, and his reconciling spirit. I cannot choose to ignore what God hates just because I'm uncomfortable navigating the waters of racial reconciliation. Like Peter, I believe we must step out of the boat, keep our eyes on Jesus, and trust that he will be the solid foundation upon which we journey in this endeavor. Why does diversity matter to a white person? For the same reason it matters to God. He designed a fabulously diverse world. He created it, and he reveals himself through it. If you want to draw closer to God, to know him more, and make him known, then enter into the conversation of diversity and see what you can learn through the process. Stop complaining and do something. My time is up, but I would urge you to seek the truth in these matters. There's much I could tell you, but it's might not be taken as truth without lengthy discussion of facts and data. Here's a few things I will tell you. Every life of every ethnicity, both American and immigrant, matters. Your life matters. My life matters. Make your life matter by doing something meaningful for someone else less fortunate.
Later today, almost right after this, I'm going to send out an email that has a Google form. If you have any questions, David and Bob both are very, very serious. They want to know what your questions are. They want you to think about this. What are questions that you have? Because when I grew up, when they grew up, like they said, they didn't see color. We didn't see color. Y'all are probably thinking we don't see color. And it's still an issue. And so think about some questions that you want to talk about on Wednesday. Seniors and faculty, y'all are dismissed.